This is the complete history and evolution of the Warframe franchise. Starting with the earliest versions of the game and ending to where we are today, this is what it was like to be a Tenno coming into the game. So whether you're a veteran taking a trip on this nostalgic journey or a new Tenno discovering what you missed out on, this is the history of Warframe. In 2004, Digital Extremes pitched a concept for a video game called The Dark Sector. This concept at the time, thought by many, was an exciting new direction in video gaming. However, unbeknownst to everyone at the time, DE leadership scrapped this concept that the developers were working on for a long time, and the direction of the video game was altered. The old story followed the main protagonist, Hayden Tenno, a key operative for the Lotus Rebellion, and was sent out to the far reaches of space to infiltrate a Grineer intelligence base. But for whatever reason, DE leadership did not like this idea. A year later, 2012, and absolutely no one has heard of Warframe at this point. But Digital Extremes publicly announced in June a game that they were working on called Warframe. And with it, we got the first look of the pre-alpha version of the game, as well as being able to sign up for the closed beta set to release sometime in October. The developers at Digital Extremes are planning to make the game a sci-fi third-person co-op shooter that features 8 Warframes which possess their own unique abilities that the players use as they explore their environment. The Warframes in the game at the time were Excalibur, Ash, Rhino, Frost, Loki, Mag, Ember, Volt, and Trinity. It's finally October and DE announced that Warframe entered closed beta. So players who had previously signed up for the beta patiently wait to receive a key in the mail so they can log onto the game for the first time. With the closed beta being out for a while, there were still concerns amongst community members about how well the game will perform once it's officially released.
So I think there's a lot of potential here. There really, really is. But I'm not really sure where they want to go with it and what they're going to have to add to it, because we've seen games like this before and it running into a situation where even with extensive PvP options, running the PvE stuff just became a little bit tedious after a while because it was very, very repetitive.
Fast forwarding a year later, the closed beta has ended and Warframe officially launched on PC on March 2013. The community at the time is ecstatic because everyone can finally download the game and enjoy it for themselves. On March 18, 2013, Warframe had its first ever update, and that update was 7.0, which would be the first of many future updates. With 7.0 came modern system rework, stealth attacks, customizable sentinels which serve as companions to assist you in missions, 3 new weapons, Paris, Viper and Fang, and lastly 2 new female Warframes. Banshee, a Warframe capable of using sonic beast attacks, and Siren, a beautiful but deadly Warframe whose poisonous attacks can dissolve her enemies. But what arguably at the time was to be one of the best additions to the game was the Corpus Outpost. We're in May 2013 and the Warframe community is excited because Digital Extremes released update 8.0, which is Rise of the Warlords. This was one of the biggest updates to the game at the time because the content drops during that period were massive. We got the Grineer Galleon tileset, which is another ship outside of the Corpus tileset, which was the only tileset we had to date. The Dojo, which served as a guild amongst players and were fully customizable. The Conclave, which introduced PvP, which was met with much criticism and is as of present a dead mission type unless you run into friends. The Stalker, which absolutely destroyed low-level players when he marked you for death. Polarizing Gear, which is a huge addition to the game even to this day because it allows players to form a polarity slots onto weapons, frames, companions, you name it. Necros, a new frame which was farmable by defeating Warframe's newest boss to the game in the Orokin dialect called the Lephantis. Damage 2.0, which added elemental combos to our builds. Boris Price Quest, which brought to the game the most legendary dialogue of all time to the game, hands down. No one can tell me different.
Look at them. They come to this place when they know they are not pure. Behold the Tenno, come to scavenge and desecrate this sacred realm.
The Roken Void, a new location where players would read void keys, may they rest in peace, in what was known as the Roken Towers. There was one more addition in the update that made it like really special, because DE also released the first ever primed Warframe. That Warframe was Frost Prime, and later on during that update they also released the first ever female primed Warframe, which was Mag. These primed Warframes are upgraded versions of the base frames. So the community all over were excited for these new frames and were rushing to farm these parts so they could build and max them. But the one question everyone had on their minds at the time was, what exactly are primed frames and who were the Roken? In October 24th, 2014, they added the Archwing quest. This is a new game mode that wasn't well received by the community because players were actually forced to construct this equipment so we could engage in space and or underwater combat. This game mode at the time was very unpolished, which made it feel really gimmicky and had bugs which had to be hotfixed later on. This was especially hard as the difficulty of these missions were high and left you most of the time getting your ass kicked, unless you had Archwing mods, which you grinded for. However, the main issue was the amount of resources and time required to build these Archwings and weapons themselves. New and older players alike saw no real incentives to run Archwing missions unless a mission required you to, and thus this made this one of the most least played game modes in Warframe. Now, by far one of the most interesting updates was in March 19th, 2015. Digital Extremes what looked like to be endgame content in Warframe, and that was the Law of Retribution. Players all over were rushing to try this new trials mission to be the first ones to explore and complete the raid. You and 7 other players pursue Veilbreaker in order to defeat him and end his reign over the Tenno once and for all. The rewards for completing the raids were the Invati and Asaron Sekaro badges, 300k worth of credits, and the most important, arcane enhancements. This update brought a lot to the game, a great credit farm which gives you near 500k worth of credits if you run both normal and nightmare versions of the raid badges to show to other players of your accomplishments and to flex a little bit, great mechanics which were buggy at times but required a lot of teamwork and coordination, but most importantly arcanes, particularly the most sought after arcane to this day, Arcane Energize, which provide a 60% chance to gain additional energy upon pickup. These arcanes could be traded to other players for platinum or used to upgrade your own Warframe builds. And this brings us to update 17.9. The Jordas Verdict raid was added into the game. This made it the second trials mission in the game alongside with the Law of Retribution. The raid had complex and unique mechanics which made this the most difficult mission type in the game. The 3 main reasons is it being an Archwing raid, how high the difficulty is, because you normally end up dying often that you run out of revives, and slight gatekeeping. Given how difficult and teamwork oriented the raid is, players who have more experience would usually take on players who have similar or even more experience. But what made this game mode unique, however, were the mechanics, the sheer size of the boss, and it incorporating Archwing. The reward for completing this raid were 300k plus credits, arcane enhancements, and the Jordas Sekaro badge upon first completion. This update also brought the beginnings of Digital Extremes finally fleshing out the lore for the game. Because up to this point, the lore has been all over the place like a massive jigsaw puzzle, having players over the years trying to piece things together. This addition became the foundation upon which the lore was built upon, and by far was one of the best quests in the entire game, the Second Dream. December 3rd, 2015, Update 18 went live. This update served as the continuation of the Stolen Dream and the Nectar quest. It also made this the first cinematic quest ever added into the game. The second dream was a huge turning point for the game because it expanded the origin story of the Tenno, the sentience, and the stalker within the game. The narration blew the entire community and myself away with how well crafted it was, and completing this update gave players access to the new focus system that was tied to your operator. This was extremely important because this changed the playstyle of both your frame and your operator going forward in the game. The next update after that were the Acolytes, which first came on January 25th, 2016. One of the greatest updates Warframe has ever had in Warframe to this day. The Stalker allies, the Acolytes, would spawn randomly on the star chart, and we were to hunt them down for their most exclusive rewards. The Acolytes dropped rewards every player would tell you that you did not want to miss out on. Ones like Maiming Strike, Argon Scope, Blood Rush, Weeping Wounds, Body Count, and Bladed Rounds. These are top tier mods that created at the time the most god tier builds. The most popular example of these builds being Maiming Strike and the Atarax, which gave birth to the phrase spin to win. However, much to the community dismay, a few of these mods will later on receive nerfs, with Maiming Strike being hit the hardest, breaking the meta that was ongoing at the time. But the main reason why some of these mods were very sought after were because of their value in the trading market, as they were exclusive drops tied to an event that rarely had a rerun, with mods like Argon Scope and Maiming Strike at the time being worth 900 to thousands of plats. However, as of update 29.5 in 2020, the Acolytes became a permanent addition to the game, making them available in the Steel Path, and the once more sought after mods being added to the bounties on Deimos as rewards. On June 15, 2016, Digital Extremes would release a trailer for the next coming update, Lunaro. This would be the newest game mode added to the Conclave, where Tennos would work together on Team Sun or Moon to move the ball up an Oracle arena into the opponent's goal. This was a fun contact ball spot to play with friends or clan members. The mechanics were interesting and it brought another competitive game mode to Warframe, but the player retention wasn't high and there was not much incentive to keep playing the game mode, so the hype and the game mode in general died quickly after. Following the second dream, update 19 continued the story where it left off with the War Within. This got added on November 11, 2016, where the second dream made you learn about your Tenno origins. War Within made players learn about the Tenno's past and our true capabilities. Updates 18 and 19 were massive in terms of the direction Digital Extremes wanted to go for the game, as they expanded the Warframe universe with the lore, because this was unlike anything they were ever doing before. This kept us, the community, nervously excited as we were anticipating what they would do next. And they did not miss, because on June 29, 2017, Chains of Harrow went live in update 21. This was a solo-only main quest that featured the Red Veil and a cast-out Tenno named Rel. The community went wild with the lore that this quest dropped. Rel didn't go into cryo sleep in lore like the rest of us Tenno because he was cast out by Margulis and us fellow Tennos because he was in contact with the manifestation of the Void, also known as the Man in the Wall. This quest left us, the players, with more questions than answers, and left the community coming up with their own theories until the next major update. The next update that was to come after that was the Plains of Eidolon, Digital Extreme's most biggest and most ambitious update created for Warframe. The Plains of Eidolon is an ancient battlefield where an enormous sentient was defeated during the Old War by a Warframe called Gara. This update brought an open world environment for players to explore and mess around with. They added a day and night cycle, fishing, mining, bounties, Zors, which were craftable melee weapons, and incursion events, which happened randomly during the day. Then, when night would hit, world bosses would spawn called the Eidolons. This was unlike anything we've ever had in Warframe up to this point, and it really changed the feel of the game. And many other people thought so as well, because this update increased the player base significantly during that time. In June 2018, DE gave us our third major cinematic quest, which was the Sacrifice. which focus on telling the story in a different way. The sacrifice, like the previous quest, is a solo-only quest that follows the operator's search for the Lotus, who was taken by Ballas for unknown reasons. In the quest, we were given a new Warframe, Excalibur Umbra, who possesses unique anti-sentient abilities and is somehow linked to Ballas. Through this quest, we uncovered the origin of Warframes and sentience and how the Tenno tie in with them. The quest does a great job at explaining the lore that we learned, and the revelation that the Lotus herself is a sentient was the most shocking thing that was revealed towards players at the end of the quest. Players could not have predicted that, and even though this quest was well received by the community, there were few criticisms that the quest fell short compared to the quests like War Within and Secondary. In that same year, 2018, TennoCon went live and DE showed us Railjack among other projects that they were working on that they were planning to bring into the game in future updates. But we'll get back to that in a minute. Right now I want to put you guys on some other shit still. The next expansion that followed a year after the Plains of Eidolon was Fortuna in Update 24 on November 8th, 2018. The Obvalis is an open world on Venus. This is a land of duality where cold tundras made by the Orokin terraformation devices mix with the harsh original atmosphere of Venus. The world is home to multiple corpus outposts and colonies, and among them is the Death Internment colony of Fortuna. They introduced a few things into this update, such as conservation, where we capture animals through the use of trangs and lures, kit guns, which were craftable weapons, corpus bases, which we could capture and served as respawn locations, plus stuffed animals, K-drives, which served as hoverboards, Moa companions, and 2 new world bosses, Profit Taker and the Exploiter Orb. Even with these new additions and updates overall, the community was starting to voice the issues with the repetitiveness of grinding yet another reputation system. In Update 26, Digital Extremes brought the Old Blood, also known as the Kuva Lich update. These leeches are near immortal Grineer super soldiers spiked with the Queen's Kuva and are armed with advanced Kuva weapons. In order for us to stop them, we are tasked with finding the correct sequence of phrases inscribed on Requiem mods, so that we could apply them on our power zone to purify these leeches. These leeches have their own unique names, abilities, and weapons. And the most interesting thing about this update was the rewards that we get for either killing or claiming these leeches. Claiming them allowed you to turn them into an ally which you could summon on your future missions, while killing them allowed you to take their weapon so that you could craft it for yourself, which is why majority of the players farmed leeches for, especially as the leeches had a chance to drop the Kuva Brahma, Zar, and Nuko, which are god-tier weapons that changed the meta. Coming back to the trailer of Railjack that we talked about, that was teased during TennoCon in 2018, it's now a year later and we're finally getting the update added to the game. On December 13th, 2019, Update 27 brought Railjack. Once you already completed the Rising Tide quest, where you had to build the dry dock and the Railjack piece by piece in your clan dojo, we could now grab our ships and soar through the stars, which gave this update a Star Wars kind of feel to it. Railjack brought customizability and modding to our ships, new resources, missions, tile sets, enemies, and a lot of bugs. This was one of the messiest updates I have ever seen in Warframe, and wasn't enjoying it for a while until its overall rework later on. And a large majority of the community felt the same way, and still to this day don't like this mission type. This was due to a few things. One, players viewing Railjack as another Archwing system, which players generally don't like, and its massive grind and work that it takes to build your ship. So this was one of Warframe's community's least favorite updates and was heavily criticized alongside of the Scarlet Spear update following shortly after. This brings us to the next big update that Warframe received. On August 25th, 2020, DE gave us yet another open world expansion. This time an infested world called the Heart of Deimos. Like Plains of Eidolon and Fortuna, it featured a similar reputation system and activities. This was just another farm island that took us away from our regular missions. The players already expressed how fatigued they were with Fortuna and Cetus. This one just took Burnt Out to another level. However, with that aside, this update feature would introduce the helmet. This would change how we do builds in Warframe forever. This is also the same system that gave rise to Gloom being on a bunch of YouTube videos, like everywhere. The helmet is a being residing in the helmet infirmary of the Arbiter. Its ability to replace the Warframe's ability with those of other Warframes is what makes this so god tier. This by far was one of the more useful additions to Deimos alongside with Necromechs. Entranti war machines encountered on the ruins of Deimos. They were war machines built during the Old War as predecessors to Warframes. When players got a hold of them using your Tenno, you could use transference to wield them. The downside, which is very sad, is the limited use to open worlds and Railjack. With the addition of Update 30, the Color Tempestari cemented Railjack being an integral part to Warframe and the lore going forward. And this update brought the Corpus version of Liches called the Sisters of Parvos. Update 31 went live. An update that Digital Extremes have been hyping and teasing the community for years now finally dropped. The new war, and no theories could have predicted or prepared us, and this made previous quests like the War Within, the Sacrifice Second Dream look like short side quests in comparison, with the new war taking you roughly 4 to 5 hours to complete. This solo only mission quest prevents players from accessing other activities until the quest was completed. This update brought everything from the quest over the years to a resounding conclusion for Operator, as well as giving us both answers and more questions for and about our Operator, these serving as the foundation for the next future update, Veilbreaker. This brought interesting characters together which are now community favorites like Carl 175, Besso, and Teshin to fight the war on different fronts. And we, the players, were able to use these characters in the new war and see things through their point of view as we experience the war unfold. Needless to say, there were a few aspects that felt rushed, didn't make any sense, and needed more explanation. Because Ballas being the main antagonist didn't make any sense based on how the previous quests were going, because in Sacrifice, War Within, and the prelude to the new war, the main focus and build-up were towards the sentience entirely, with Errol Lotus and their mother being highlighted as like the main villains for the next upcoming updates. Also, Ballas having this huge empire where there were no signs of him beforehand having one. Errol switching sides throughout the quest from being bad to good for no reason at all. And we now have a multiverse because of internalism, and anything going forward is possible. So D could do anything with internalism being the explanation. I'm gonna stop there because I can keep going on. But overall, this quest was great. The cinematic, the lore, and seeing the man in the wall appear at the end of the quest surprised everyone, including myself. But the quest did the most important thing, which was closing the story for Lotus, Margulis, or Nata, or whichever one you decided to choose. This also left us with a lot of questions. Like, where did the Drifter come from? Who is the man in the wall? And what is next for Warframe? At the end of April, Digital Extremes released update 31.5, The Angels of Zariman, which served as a follow-up to the new war, where the Zariman 10-0, a ship that was always half in and out of the void, fully materialized into our world, and has drawn the attention of both Grineer and Corpus, as well as our Operator. This contains 3 new game modes, tile sets, weapons, and another reputation system. But this update was a little bit different, as this time the explorable zones were within the Zariman 10-0 and not an open world. This update and its additional mission types were well received by the entire community. This brings us to the next update, Veilbreaker Update 32. This is set after the new war and gave us our 50th Warframe Steinax, a Spartan themed frame. We were shown the after effects that Ballas Archons and Normal Enslavements had on the origin system, and we experienced this through the eyes of Carl 175 as he's a playable character yet again. Through the new weekly missions, Carl, alongside his brothers, work together to free other enslaved people from Nama. For rewards, of course, because we don't do shit for free. They also added a new mission type called Archon Hunts, which is a game mode that allowed us to collect Archon shards, which serve like a gem-like system, as you would use the shards to increase your Warframe's abilities. During this update period, we would also receive Fortuna, a wolf-like Warframe, in the Lewis Prey update, and Citron, a frame that everyone heralds to be one of the best additions to our arsenal in a long time. April 26, 2023, the Duviri Paradox dropped our latest update, Update 33. The long-awaited cinematic quest and open world has finally arrived. This is a follow-up quest after the New War and gave us the origin story for the Drifter. Playing as Drifter, we are trapped within the void in an endless loop as we continuously fail to escape Duviri, as we are repeatedly sentenced to death by Dominus Thrax, a time resetting mad ruler who doesn't remember who they are. Given the powers from the Lotus's hand, we team up with Teshin in order to break the loop. Update 33 added an open world, the Duviri, Sun and Moon, Teshin's craftable weapons, which we finally got after years, a mount called a Kate, an intrinsic system similar to Railjack, and various mission modes that you complete as either the Drifter or Warframe, or as both. Digital Extremes also added Stalker into the game, not in the way that the community and players wanted in general, but we still had him added into the game nonetheless. Upon reaching rank 10 in the Opportunity Intrinsics, you unlock the Stalker as a playable frame. This was something the community has been dying to be able to do for years, ever since he was introduced into the game. The downside, however, to the Stalker is him being locked into the circuit game mode in the Duviri and the bitter grind in order to max out that intrinsics. The Stalker is a reward depending on which player you ask is worth the grind for. Me personally, I don't see the hype in trying to grind rank 10 to get the Stalker, but that's just me. With Thrax finally defeated and the loop broken, where the Drifter story takes us is something that we as the community will have to wait and see in the next future update. With this chapter, the Warframe story is coming to a close. We as Tennos been through a lot together, from waking up from stasis to finding our place in the origin systems. I'm certain about one thing: Digital Extremes has many more adventures planned for us.
What took you so long?
My fellow Tennos, thank you very much for watching the video. This video took hours to make over the span of several weeks, almost a month I think it's been a month. If you found yourself enjoying the video and know someone who would too, please like, comment, and share all that good stuff. Again, thank you very much for watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.